I am not a multiplayer guy by any means. While I don't hate them, I mean, I'm best friends with a multiplayer game. You know, my aunt's uncle is a multiplayer game. It's just that any sort of game where I'm forced to play with others or even be online at all times is not really my idea of fun. But Zynga Games' new Star Wars title, Hunters, is free to play, which is always hard to pass up. Outside of that, its big selling point was that it was a game similar to Overwatch but set in Star Wars and exclusive for the Switch. Essentially, you have a set amount of heroes to choose from with randomly picked maps and modes to mitigate the monotony that can come with online games. I planned on giving Hunters as much time as I could, but I ended up putting around a fairly okay 4 hours, in which I played 62 matches total, and while I haven't unlocked all the characters that I wanted to in that time, I've got a pretty good idea of what the general gameplay loop is, and I ended up having more fun than I expected. You know, when all of the pieces fell into place. Like I said, this is a Switch exclusive, but it's also for mobile devices, both Android and iOS. But surprisingly, I sort of love the look of Hunters. The bright, colorful textures mixed alongside the blocky, low-poly look does double duty of reminding me of the Clone Wars and Rebels art styles, while simultaneously making me completely forget that this was a mobile game ported to a home console. Obviously while it's docked, but even in handheld mode, it doesn't look that bad. As far as I know, timeline-wise, it's not very clear where Hunters is set exactly, but it seems to be set after the original trilogy and before the sequels. A period of time that's still pretty much vague in terms of a clear design philosophy, or even a real strict timeline of events. I don't know, I stopped watching after Book of Boba Fett. So that gives the developers a lot of leeway to play around with the lore, and the end result are maps that recreate areas from previous Star Wars movies with a new twist. There's 2 different Tatooine maps which are set in arenas that also consist of pod racing, which is pretty cool, although both of them are so similar that I kind of wish a different planet took one of their places. There's the destroyed Death Star 2 and Endor, but hands down, my personal favorite was Vandor. Not because it's my favorite map, although I do appreciate the verticality of it, but because it's from Solo. I fucking love Solo. There's no deeper meaning. That movie just makes me feel good. The character designs also have these same sorts of twists added to them. Each of them take from some sort of race or faction in Star Wars and changes it in some way. Like a stormtrooper, but he's a part of the Remnant since the Empire is, you know, kinda kaput. There's 2 Jawas stacked on top of each other like it's a joke in a kid's movie. There's a droid who wants to be a Jedi, and so he's modified parts to resemble the robes and fake force powers. He's my favorite. Even the characters that are a little less visually imaginative, like Zaina, a sort of vague rebel soldier, and Graz, who's just a random Wookiee who uses droid arms. They're both neat, but it's a shame that there wasn't more added to them, specifically Graz. The actual gameplay is pretty easy to understand, even for somebody who stays away from this sort of game altogether. Each different character is separated into one of 3 classes, be it support, damage, and tanks. I tend to lead towards tanks, which are slow but deal tons of damage. Very good for somebody who just wants to shoot stuff, but I'd have no fucking clue what to do when playing a support class, and those were definitely my least favorite matches. The different game types all vary somewhat. There's a deathmatch equivalent, a capture the flag, and a game of keep away. But no matter what, it's all 4v4 PvP, and there's still a major focus on eliminating as many enemies as you can while playing the goal. What the fuck is going on with my voice, man? This is getting fucking ridiculous. The maps are pretty small, so camping is very difficult to do here, and probably the biggest appeal to this game is that matches can last as short as 3 minutes, so none of them overstay their welcome. So even if you're just a Star Wars fan who doesn't really like multiplayer games like I am, it isn't like the Battlefront games where some of those matches can go upwards of 30 minutes if they're really fucking competitive. Outside of different types, there's 3 modes that you can pick: casual, ranked, and matchup clash. Matchup Clash is probably my favorite mode altogether. You're not able to pick your character here like you are with the other 2 modes, so it isn't a race to pick your main. Game types, maps, and characters are all picked at random, and giving the player a chance to use characters they haven't unlocked yet outside of practice mode is genius. Although it can sometimes lead to being thrown into a match with a character you have no experience with whatsoever. This footage is completely unrelated, by the way. Graz and Sentinel were my main squeezes, but I really loved playing as Aran Tal, the Mandalorian. Switching between the dual blasters and the flamethrower made me miss that cancelled Mando game all the more. So it sucks that you seemingly can't unlock him whatsoever without buying him. at least not until the first season is over, which is stupid, but I'll get to that in due time. This is less of an issue with hunters and more of an issue with multiplayer games in general, so it's probably just an issue with me, but relying on my teammates to do their part does detract from my enjoyment at points, especially when game modes relying on teamwork are instead used as a pseudo deathmatch by all my teammates, with only a fraction of people actually defending the goal. And I get that having matches be both 4v4 and last for very short periods of time are both meant to mitigate this issue, but I still sort of wish that there was a way to pick specific game modes, mostly so everyone who just wants to play deathmatch can go to squad brawl specifically, while those who actually want to play the objective can do the other stuff. And this is coming from a guy playing on casual who doesn't really care. Ranked can be even more frustrating since many of those players are actively trying to get better at the game instead of just, reviewing it on the internet.
Y'all gotta change that name.
Outside of the drawbacks of its nature as a multiplayer game, I enjoyed Hunters. The opening hour or so was exciting, starting you off with a few rounds of bot matches until you're slowly pushed into online play, as you're constantly unlocking new heroes back to back to back. But this is where the less fun stuff begins to rear its head. It's usually not hard to read what a title's main purpose is, and Hunters, like any other online game, wants you to keep playing. So much so that you may just spend a little money to have a better experience or whatever. Like any leveling system in a game, the higher the level you need to achieve to unlock characters, the more XP is required. So by level 13 or so to unlock the Jedi droid, you need 2400 XP, which could take anywhere from 20 to 30 matches, depending entirely on both you and your team's performance. And I'm sure that this only gets worse when trying to unlock Reeve, the Sith Assassin, or Char, the Body Hunter. The Body Hunter. Oh my fucking gosh, I didn't know he was a fucking porn star. Or you could buy them to the tune of just $10 worth of crystals per unlockable character. Or you can buy the character packs directly for $1 less. There's probably some loophole there that benefits Zynga in some way. The only way to obtain Aran Tal is by paying for the arena pass another $10. Sometimes just booting up the main menu will give you a pop-up where pressing A will purchase a character pack automatically. Of course, pop-ups in video games have unfortunately existed for far too long, usually in the form of end-user license agreements and bullshit like that, but never have they been this predatory. Imagine this is a family Switch with a card attached to it. By just the press of a button, you can drop $10 on a character pack accidentally by booting the fucking game. I'm not against DLC or monetization that feels fair, but this is outwardly predatory and weird. It reminds me so much of Fortnite and its reliances on both existing IP and FOMO to get motherfuckers who don't care about the game to run online just to buy the skins before they go away. But as much as I hate it, this doesn't make me enjoy Hunters any less, but it does remind me why I stay away from games that are always online. While I don't really care because there's a gazillion games on my plate, for some people, kids specifically, I'm sure it's gotta suck seeing your friends play with premium characters and skins, which can make it feel like the haves and the have-nots. But who cares about them? Focus on me for a second. Wading through this overfilled mess of a UI gives me a fucking headache every time. Every time I think I know what I'm looking for and I know where it's gonna be, I'm completely flabbergasted. I promise I enjoyed this game. This is the first time I've used my Switch in months. Not only that, but I played it in handheld mode in bed. I've never done that with this damn thing. It hurts my wrists. The maps are nice to run around in. Unlocking characters is satisfying at times. The player base is extremely active all hours of the day, so you're never waiting longer than a few seconds for a map to queue up. It's just a fun Star Wars game for those who have a little more patience than I do. I'll just stick to my single player shenanigans, thank you very much. Although, I will keep it installed to play a match every now and then in case there's some major content drops or something. Hopefully this game stays around a while. It sort of dropped fast in terms of popularity, lest it become another Star Wars Squadrons. Does anybody remember that game? Don't forget to share this to the HoloNet.
Now you die! Wrong button. Nope. Ow! Double saber delicious! Too old for this, I'm getting. That's brisk, baby!